Hi, thanks for tuning in again. This is Adam Hillhouse, and today is a day I've personally been looking forward to for quite some time. I'm lucky enough to be joined by one of the superstars of the architectural world, Mr. Craig Dykers, senior partner, director, and architect with the award-winning firm Snøhetta. Snøhetta is an international architecture and landscape architecture practice originally founded in Oslo, Norway in 1989. Since its founding, Snøhetta has garnered much acclaim for their innovative designs and now operate from offices in both Oslo and New York. Mr. Dykers is the lead designer for the National September 11th Memorial and Museum Pavilion, the only building that actually sits on the memorial grounds. Some of you, I'm sure, know of this project as the home of the two trident columns saved from the World Trade Center collapse. Craig, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to speak with me today.
You're welcome. I'm sort of snickering here from some of the terminology. The notion of superstar is a little, problematic. But I think that's because our office tends to be very cooperative. We're a group of people that really share the design emphasis together. So I'm really in very many ways fortunate to be representing the office.
Well, I appreciate your humility.
It's not humility, it's just the real thing.
Great to hear. To start things off, can you briefly outline your personal background a little bit and also maybe a little bit about your experience with Snøhetta?
Well, my personal history is, I suppose, somewhat interesting. My mother is from England, from London, and my father's from New Mexico, and I was born in Germany, and I've lived much of my life in different places around the world, including Egypt and a number of other places. So I have always felt a connection to the wider sensibilities that the world as a global culture has created in my lifetime. And I believe that carries through to my feelings today. I would also say that during my career as an architect, I've been very fortunate to have worked with issues surrounding landscape and also social and anthropological issues that have brought forward ideas about architecture that aren't principally focused on the formal design aspect of our profession.
Now, your upcoming session at this fall's conference is entitled simply Snøhetta Works. Can you briefly outline what our listeners can expect to hear?
Well, the word works is obviously a pun. It's meaning that we're working, and also it's our work. So it's an active noun and an active verb, and we are very much about action. I like to think that our office is unique in how much interactivity there is, not only between ourselves and the people we work with, and between our buildings and those who use them, but also between the different groups inside the office. We're landscape architects, interior designers, working in a sort of open atmosphere. And you can probably see behind me the space that we're in. It's a fairly open studio. I'm sitting at my desk, so maybe unlike some offices certainly in America, I don't have a private office space or anything like that. We work all in a sort of committed sensibility of a kind of co-op. So we'll be talking a bit about that process and how we bring projects to fruition, the open-ended aspect of design and the organic quality of a design process here, as well as showing the aspects. Oh, I'm sorry, a little beep here. I'll turn off that. The open aspects of the design and how they relate to the public that uses them. I'm going to turn off everything on my computer. I see this lots of noises.
Oh, that's okay. Of course, we're all, aware of the long history of design that has come out of the Norwegian culture, and it seems that lately there's been a strong resurgence of influence from Norwegian architecture. Can you talk a bit about the influence of the Norwegian culture of design on the overall firm of Snøhetta?
Well, Norway is amongst the world's most beautiful nations. It's well known for its sort of landscape. It spans from the deep fjords right up to the high mountain peaks of the Norwegian mountain ranges. It spans a great distance, so it's a very long country going all the way from north of the Arctic Circle to latitudes that are closer to the mainland of Europe. So as a result, the quality of daylight is unique in many parts of Norway. One can see and witness in relatively urban surroundings the midnight sun, which is a rare sight in many other places in the world. Yet at the same time, despite the fact that it is so far north, it has a direct link to the trade winds created by the Gulf Stream. So it's relatively warm, although it is very far north compared to certainly America. Most of Norway is north of the northern areas of Alaska and Canada, which in the region in the United States that seems so far north it's hard to comprehend. But because of the Gulf Stream, it makes it a livable place. So we find a direct connection between the needs of dwelling and the needs of understanding the landscape in this part of the world that we often carry with us. Hey, Mia. Hi. Sorry, some friends came by.
No worries.
And actually, it was with the editor of Norwegian Architecture magazine that just walked past me, so we have an interesting link there. The other thing I would say is social issues are very important. We have a feeling that there's an open society, a diverse society in the Nordic and Scandinavian regions. So the idea of bringing people together in a social context is very important. And those are the things that we like to draw into our work.
Very interesting. Given that you do work on projects in very diverse locations, what are your thoughts on the perception of the architect and their role in solving societal problems?
Well, I've said this many times. While architecture can be political, it is not fundamentally political, nor can it really create political change in any direct way, certainly not at the scale at which politicians can affect change in our political lives. Nevertheless, it creates small interventions in our urban context that allow people to interact in unique and political ways, because we create social spaces related to the architecture, at least our practice does. A good example of that would be the plaza that is out front of the Library of Alexandria, which took many years to complete. And it was very important to us that we remove the barriers or the walls that might have existed otherwise if the security forces had been a stronger influence in the design process. So by creating an open plaza where people could congregate, this created a sense of commitment to the space that the citizens of Alexandria had. And during the uprisings that occurred recently in Egypt, this space became one of the primary sort of peaceful locations for dialogue, as opposed to the kind of violent uprisings that were occurring around it. So it had an influence. It didn't create the political upheaval in Egypt, but it certainly contributed. And as architects, the things that we do that have an urban relationship or a relationship to civilization or a relationship to society as a whole somehow can contribute. And the collection of all these small contributions have a larger effect.
Very great. Very good. Recently I saw your interview on the Discovery Channel about the 9/11 pavilion, and I was inspired by the obvious love that you have for architecture and that project in particular. One of the things that stood out to me was the story behind the frit pattern on the pavilion's glazing. You talked a bit about the sense of vertigo that one experienced when looking up at the original towers. Can you share with us how you translated that experience for the Memorial Pavilion?
Well, the thing that interested me and others about that sense of vertigo isn't the fact that one had vertigo, because that can be a very negative quality to people. It was more related to the idea that you had a physical body reaction to a piece of architecture just by looking at it, which is a kind of an unusual quality that those buildings had. We wanted to create a physical interaction with this building. So by creating a slightly reflective surface that was relatively within the confines of your visual experience as you move through the street, through your sort of perspectival cone of vision, it meant that your body would somehow react to those shapes and the changes in light in a very direct way. So most people, when they walk up to the building, they walk up to it in a direct perpendicular manner, but as they get closer to it, their body kind of shifts. And that movement is something that your body records. You may not perceive it, but your body records it. And I think that architecture can help people be active in different ways. And that certainly is true with our opera design in Oslo, where people move across these platforms that are out of their ordinary position with relation to gravity.
Great. It's all about the experience of architecture. And, of course, that's something that architects have been trying to do since the Renaissance, I believe. Do you have any other thoughts on this unique project and anything else you'd like to share with our listeners?
At Ground Zero?
Correct.
You mean the World Trade Center project?
Yes, sir.
Well, certainly there are a number of issues that I think are rather interesting. One of them has to do with the opening that occurred on September 11th this year. As you can imagine, the morning ceremonies were rather hard on most people. There was a lot of apprehension, a lot of grief, a lot of difficult emotions. So there was crying and a general feeling of sort of intensity. But as the day moved forward and that had gone through people's systems, you started to see people smile. There were people enjoying themselves, people laughing, and I think also people interacting in more energetic ways. You also saw children rolling around in the grass in the memorial grounds. And that was such a great feeling. And I think it has to do with so many different things, but there's definitely a sense of optimism that's growing out of the structures that are created there. And ours especially is related to this feeling that you have every day, the joy of being in the present, not in the past, not in the future, but being in the now. And the slight reflections of the facade and the way the glass frit pattern merges with the reflectivity of the metal moves your eye in a special way, and there's a changing of the reflective qualities of the facade that just give you a sense of comfort. And at that particular site, we couldn't ask for anything more.
Wonderful. Thanks for sharing that. We're running a little bit short on time. I just wanted to give you an opportunity. If you had to narrow it down, is there one main idea that you hope our listeners will take away from your upcoming session?
Architecture is in a transformation now. We're no longer focused on physical objects in and of themselves. Our work is becoming more aware of the resources that supply it, and also how our buildings and our designs support the resources that it affects. And it also is about intellectual sustainability of sorts, allowing work to broaden people's methods of thinking and challenging people to move forward in their perception of the world around them. So in a sense, it's about the reality of being alive, and it's not about the abstract or kind of academic discussion of what it is that we create, but rather about the context as it exists. So there can be great intent and great I believe complex issues around that. You don't move those things to the side. They're just, I think, experienced in a unique way, and that's what I hope people will see in our talk.
Great, very inspiring words. Well, unfortunately, we've come to the end of our time together. I want to thank you first and foremost for the important and impressive work that your firm has produced. It's a great inspiration, especially for young architects like myself. Thank you so much for your time this afternoon, and I look forward to meeting you at this fall's conference.